This is Judge Rachel Krause. She is currently the judge assigned to handle Judge Glanville's recusal case. Watch the video until the end to find out why Judge Krause may decide to rule on Glanville's recusal without hosting a hearing or calling witnesses.
The whole process of this recusal thing, will there be a hearing if it is granted? And what is the whole, how does that go about? Is it the witnesses come about and they make a decision based on a hearing, or what? How does that go?
A lot of this is in the control of the judge that hears the recusal, Judge Krause in this case. The judge can make a decision on the papers, just the papers that are filed. The judge can have a hearing. The judge can decide that we're allowed to bring witnesses in.
Last night on the infamous Sylvia show, Doug Weinstein, attorney for diamante Kendrick, came on the show to answer questions. Weinstein shed light on many questions that YSL trial observers have relating to the recusal hearing for Chief Judge Granville. See the link for the full show in the description. One question many people have is whether Judge Krause will agree to send Judge Glanville's recusal hearing to another jurisdiction outside of Fulton County. Weinstein insisted that he believes that Judge Krause is fair, but still believes that the case should be heard by a judge from another circuit.
Yes. I don't really care where it goes. I think everything I know about Judge Krause is that she's an excellent judge that would more than likely render an unbiased opinion. But there's a reason the case law and the opinions of the opinions of the JQC say that you need to go to another circuit. And that's because, like it or not, it's very difficult for a judge that's sitting on the bench in the same county with another judge to rule on a matter involving that judge, which is why the normal the case law says you kick it out to somewhere else. And I don't know if it's even really fair to put Judge Krause in that position where she has to make a ruling on one of her immediate colleagues. That's a tough position to put her in. And you know as much as I do, so far the judge hasn't done anything with my motion to recuse the whole Fulton County bench from hearing the recusal of Glanville. I know it's getting complicated now, right?
Yeah,
Recusals for recusals. But we have not heard anything from Judge Krause about that. So we'll see what happens. We have a plan for everything.
Complicating matters is the fact that Judge Glanville is technically a superior to Judge Krause on the Fulton County Superior Court, though not in a traditional way.
So he's not considered her boss then?
Kind of chief judge is more of an administrative position that rotates among the judges. To some extent, a boss.
Okay.
In other ways, more like a colleague who's more equal than the rest. But he has things that he runs. He has things that he does. So kind of a boss.
We asked how the Fulton County DA's office could be representing Glanville if the same office is being called as a witness. The answer was not so straightforward.
Okay. Now, next question says, does Woody have federal immunity? Hilton said so on the transcript. And if the DA is a witness to the recusal hearing, how can they represent Glanville? That's a good question. That's a very good question.
Let's talk about that. The DA, I'll go backwards. The DA isn't representing Glanville in this. What they're doing is they're responding to our motion to recuse. They could join the motion to recuse and ask for Judge Glanville to be recused. They could oppose it and say Judge Glanville should not be recused, and here's why Weinstein is wrong. Here's why Steele is wrong. And Glanville shouldn't be recused. That's kind of what I'm expecting. But they're not representing Glanville when they're doing that. They're representing the state and the interests of the state. There's no one. That's a good question. To the extent that Judge Glanville is represented, so let's go back a minute, all right? I don't want to overcomplicate things, but let's go back. Remember, I filed that petition to the Supreme Court asking them to force Judge Glanville to follow the rules on recusal and to send that recusal to another judge. And I also, that case is a civil case, Diamante Kendrick versus Chief Judge Ural Glanville. In those types of cases, Judge Glanville is represented, and he's represented by the state attorney general's office. Okay? In the petition that I filed in Fulton about 10 days ago now, that was Diamante Kendrick versus Chief Judge Ural Glanville. Judge Glanville would be represented by the state AG's office. Okay? This is different. This isn't a civil case against Judge Glanville. So the DA will do what they want with this motion. But Judge Glanville, I don't know what happens if he wants to get involved. I don't know if the state AG gets involved. I'm not exactly sure what happens if he wants to weigh in with Judge Krause.
Making things more complicated, Weinstein noted that at this point, YSL lawyers are asking for a recusal within a recusal, that Judge Krause recuse herself from Glanville's recusal case.
Okay. I have a question. I just thought of one. If you granted the recusal, what county would they pick as far as a judge? How would they do that picking?
You know, it's interesting. So this is the kind of the second recusal, right? Not the recusal of Judge Glanville, but you're talking about my request to recuse Judge Krause and any other judges in Fulton, right?
Yes.
So, interestingly enough, normally that would go up to the chief judge because he's kind of the administrator, and then he would select another county. This is my understanding. He would select another county, and then it would get kicked over to or another circuit technically, but basically another county. And the chief judge, well, then I guess it would go on the wheel or whatever process that county has for assigning judges to cases. I don't believe Chief Judge Glanville can be the one to pick the county that this would get tossed to. So I'm, again, assuming it would go to the senior most judge in Fulton to pick another county or circuit to hear the recusal of Chief Judge Glanville. That's what I think should happen.
But if Judge Krause does decide to continue and adjudicate the case, Weinstein says she has wide latitude as to how to conduct the case and can even decide to rule without a hearing or calling witnesses.
The whole process of this recusal thing, will there be a hearing if it is granted? And what is the whole, how does that go about? Is it the witnesses come about and they make a decision based on a hearing, or what? How does that go?
You know, a lot of this is in the control of the judge that hears the recusal, Judge Krause in this case. So I'm sorry, I'm tired. According to the Rule 25, which I keep citing in court that's about recusal, the judge can make a decision on the papers, just the papers that are filed. The judge can have a hearing. The judge can decide that we're allowed to bring witnesses in. It would seem in this case, that a hearing is warranted, perhaps. I don't know. I don't know what the judge is going to do. So it's up to the judge what she decides to do here.
Weinstein then described the two scenarios, one in which Glanville is taken off the case and one in which he is not.
Okay. Can you explain both scenarios where the judge gets recused and one where he does not? What's next and which is more likely?
Wow, that's a great question.
Long question, right?
Okay, let's do the judge gets recused first.
Okay.
If the judge gets recused, another judge is brought in to replace him. The law says that the case has to be unwound, basically, to the point where the first recusal was requested. I requested to at least that point. So I requested recusal on June the 12th. So a new judge will have to see if there's any way to unwind the case to Wednesday, June the 12th. I think that will be extraordinarily difficult, if not impossible, given that the jury has heard all kinds of evidence from Mr. Copeland. They've heard evidence based on judges' rulings on our objections. I don't know how you unwind this case, but the law says you have to try to unwind it. And if it can't be unwound, well, then that's grounds for a mistrial brought on by the actions of the state and the judge. What happens if the judge doesn't get recused? Well, there's potential maybe for us to be able to appeal that. If the judge doesn't get recused, the case carries on. It carries on.
Wouldn't there be some bad blood?
Well, we're all human, and you'd like to think the judge can put it aside, but yeah, we'll see if it gets there. That's an option that, well, look, I wouldn't have filed for recusal if I didn't think it was merited, okay? And if I didn't think we had a strong case.
And if the case had to be rewound, Weinstein noted the potential difficulties with attempting to accomplish that.
All right, our next one says, but if you also don't think the case will be rewound, then would that mean a mistrial? Or do you believe that that favors your client's case?
Well, if you can't really rewind the case, then a mistrial would be the only appropriate outcome at that point. Would that be in our favor? That's hard to say, because I think so far the case has been going well for us. And I hate to see this whole thing start over again.
Yeah.
And the state have an opportunity to have learned. I mean, we all do things and then we learn from them and we do them different the next time. And I'm sure, we've all learned that have been involved in this case how to do things better the next time. So I don't know if I'm wild about giving the state another bite at the apple, but I also don't believe that it's right to continue on with what's happened so far in this case.
Weinstein also answered a question as to whether he thinks Glanville will voluntarily step aside.
Next, do you think the judge will step aside?
Well, he's had an opportunity to do that, under the rules. I won't go into all the details, but he could have stepped aside at any point. When I've asked for recusal, when I've petitioned, he's shown no inclination to do that. I'm not going to get into his head, except to say, I don't have any indication that the judge believes he did anything wrong and should step aside. He's a good man. I think he believes that he is unbiased. I no longer believe that. I believed it for a long time, but I no longer believe that. But I think he is doing his best, and I think he thinks he's being unbiased. So I don't think he likely believes there's any reason for him to step aside.
One thing that is clear following Sylvia and Weinstein's interview, the future of the recusal hearing in particular, and the YSL case in general, is both complicated and unpredictable. Let us know in the comments what you think will happen.